Assalamu alaikum and welcome to The Bigger Picture. Today's topic of discussion is virtual reality. And why has it taken so much time, nearly a quarter of a century, to become really popular now?
Social, finance, employment, transport, welfare, education, careers, health, politics, world peace, disability. This is the bigger picture.
The promise of virtual reality has loomed largely over the world of computing for at least a quarter of a century, but it remains largely unfulfilled. While science, architecture, medicine, and the military all rely on virtual reality technology in different ways, mainstream adoption, like you and me in our lives, has remained virtually non-existent. Since the acquisition, though, of virtual reality company Oculus in 2014 by Facebook, there has been a renewed interest in this excitement and this exciting technology. Things are changing. There is an increased encouragement for people to share information and experiences with friends using the internet and the web. What if we could feature historical events in such a way that people could actually experience them again and again, forevermore, with an opportunity for future generations to experience what we might have experienced today? For now, what equipment do we need to experience virtual reality, and what's in store for us to experience it right now? Our expert in today's show will be answering this question and many more. You'll probably never go to Mars, or you'll probably never run 100 meters or even swim with dolphins. But if virtual reality even lives up to its promise, you might be able to do all these things and many more without even leaving your home. Exciting experiences will be within reach, just a click away. Well, we sent out our research team to get an idea of what your experience is with virtual reality and how much you know about virtual reality.
I think there's plenty of room for expansion, and it will become more of a modern thing. So we'll see it more and more through every day.
I think it works pretty well, actually. I haven't tried the Oculus Rift yet, but it seems promising.
It's so cool. I'm looking around a face.
Round a face?
Yeah, there's like a hollow mask face thing. I think it's really good. I thought it was a lot further behind than what it is. Oh my god. I can imagine that would be really immersive. Like that could be that could really help it actually, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that is cool. I think there's like both good points and bad points, to be honest. Bad because, well, you can see everyone in this generation has like phones and they're always on it. They're always onto virtual reality rather than like reality. But on the other hand, it does make us more advanced, and it's interesting of what you can do. It's like amazing how the world has developed.
I think it's a long way off, because I just think the price stuff is way too expensive at the moment and needs to really come down.
I thought it was quite clever. It's definitely the way to go forward, but perhaps just for entertainment. So I think my daughter would, like that more than myself.
I'm a filmmaker myself, and I'm very interested in breaking the dynamics between the audience and what you're watching. And with virtual reality, you'll be able to dwell more into the story of what you're looking at, and you can create your own stories, I believe.
You could use it for some design stuff, I guess. So say you architect maybe, you want to design a house, but you want to have a look inside of the house. You could walk in using virtual reality, have a look around at stuff. Quite practical stuff, you could do a lot with it.
But I think it'll be applied to anything really, to medicine. It's already being applied to medicine actually. It'll be applied to offices everywhere really. I think it'll take over, to be honest.
Like if you get bored doing normal stuff like reading a book, you can have like interactive books, and it also helps children, like when I take care of my brothers or sisters. So it's really useful, to be honest. Yeah.
It could be used for quite a lot, definitely. Games, real life application, yeah, there's definitely a lot of use for it in the future.
Well, today in the studio, we've got Jonathan Goslin. He's a creative evangelist of Happy Finish, an authority on virtual reality and augmented reality. And he's a seasoned global advertising speaker, been around in the industry. He also spoke on TED Talks. He's been in for 25 years experience. He's been in the advertising. You've worked with major brands. You've done the British Airways. You've done Mercedes and Procter & Gamble. Yeah, right, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And also, later on in the show, as well, we've got Jonathan Blaine, our career advisor. Thank you very much, John. We look forward to speaking to you. And also something that I'm very interested in as well. We've got Masood. He's using his magic pen to draw something that's maybe fired his imagination in the program today. And also remember that this program is all about you as well. So you can definitely get involved with this program by answering the question and getting involved. So we look forward for that as well. Thank you very much. Yeah. So let me start by asking the first question to you, because obviously you're an authority on this. What's your first virtual reality experience? You know, when did you get involved in this?
I'll never forget it. I went to the Trocadero in Piccadilly, the shopping mall in Piccadilly, and there was a virtual reality experience there called Virtuality. And they set it up in such a way that you would get into a sort of a big plastic racing car, and they put a headset on your head which was almost the size of a dustbin. It was absolutely huge, and you put this thing on, and there were problems with it back in then. It was probably about 1991, I think this happened. And you know, put the headset on and you're invited to do this Formula One racing drive, but it was very polygonal CGI graphics. I felt like I was in...
CGI graphics is quite technical.
Well, do you remember a lot of people might remember the music video for Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, where back in those days, CGI... What makes CGI smooth in a model, if you're looking at a CGI dinosaur in Walking with Dinosaurs, for example, is the number of polygons used to build the surface of the dinosaur. A long time ago, models in CGI were made with very few polygons. If you remember the early football FIFA games, the football players now look great, but the football players in the early FIFA games were very square, blocky and chunky. And it's because they're made of less polygons. So the racing car that I was riding around in this virtual reality experience in the Trocadero back in 1991, when I was a wee lad, it was very polygonal. It looked very chunky and square, like old-fashioned computer games, if you like. And also what would happen was when I moved my head to look around the track, there was latency. The image wasn't keeping up with my head movement. But when I took it off, I felt I'd had this wonderful experience, and I thought, this is the future. I wonder if I'll ever get to work with this in my lifetime. And sure enough, here I am today doing so.
Fantastic. And let's dwell on that more. And when you talk about the future, you mentioned games. A lot of our audiences at home, they also want to get involved as well. And we can show you how to get involved. Let's see the VT.
We would like to hear your views and thoughts on this topic. Tweet us at The Bigger Pic using the hashtag MTA_TBP, or send us an email on thebiggerpicture@mta.tv. Our social media team is excited to read your responses. We will also be sharing your tweets, answering some of your questions. Before we go to our guests and ask them questions, we have one for you. If you get it right, you can win a prize. What is another name for interpersonal communication? Is it A, virtual reality, B, dyadic communication, or C, mass communication?
So Simon, how does virtual reality differ from normal video?
Well, in essence, you know, normal video, we watch it on a rectangular screen. You sit, you don't move your head to see it. What you see is what's been filmed and edited. In virtual reality, you wear a headset and you have the ability to look up, look down, look left, look right. And behind you, it's a fully 360 immersive experience. And so storytelling differs as well, as opposed to a director saying, I want you to see this, now I want you to see this, and now I want you to see this, which is the way a 2D normal film works. You just watch what's given to you. With 360, you do watch a film, although we don't call them films, we call them experiences. And as well as watching what the director wants you to see, you have the freedom to look around and explore and look at what you choose to see yourself.
Yeah. And when you talk about look around, where these headsets, you've brought an example with you today, haven't you? There's different types of headsets as well. These are one of the important things about having the virtual reality experience.
Absolutely. There's various headsets being leaked onto the market now. In fact, it was said last year that 12.2 million headsets would sell in this year, 2016. And also, in January this year, it was announced that there were 5 million Google Cardboard headsets. These are very simple headsets that you put your smartphone inside, you go to YouTube, for example, you can select a 360 video, close it up, put it up to your head, and you're watching a virtual reality experience.
And you can buy those quite cheaply, can you?
Oh God, yeah, you can get them on Amazon for about £6 or £7, and brands, of course, are giving them away. We did something recently for Tata Motors, where they gave 2.3 million headsets away in India through the Times of India newspaper. So they're quite easily accessible now.
And it's very easy to assemble. You can buy them, assemble it, and you can put your Android or your iPhone in, and you just download a bit of software, and then you can watch virtual reality videos and experience it for next to nothing.
Well, you don't even have to download the software, and that's one of the beauties of it. Certainly, sometimes you create an app. When we did the Tata Tiago test drive, India's first virtual reality test drive, there was the option, so when they gave it away with the newspaper, it was a flat-packed headset. People had the option just to put their phone in and either watch the YouTube experience, which was just go to YouTube, you don't need to download the app, or you had the option to download the app from Google Play or from the App Store, and the app would give you other details about the vehicle, and at the end of that, you'd be invited to watch the film again or even book a test drive.
Okay, well, I'd like to ask you some more questions, but what we'd like to do is remind our viewers that we're running a live poll on Twitter as well, and that they can get in touch with that via at MTA The Bigger Pick, and we'll be continuing it here, and it will end here in the show. So the sort of question that we've been asking is, what was the one thing that you're most excited about virtual reality? And was it gaming, sports events, learning, or actually I'm not excited, but I guess some people are. So we'll be revealing those results later on in the show. But what I wanted to ask you also is that this is quite a new phenomena for most people in the norm. How difficult was it to actually get this into the market? Because you've done a lot of work working with companies, with brands. How difficult was it?
How difficult was it? Well, that's an interesting question because, first of all, it was in June 2013 that we took delivery of an Oculus Rift SDK kit. Now, what that really is was this. If you like, I talked about virtual reality and my first experience being in 1991, and then it went quiet for a while. And the real turning point for it coming back was the fact that a young 19-year-old guy called Palmer Luckey sat in his parents' garage in California with a dream to create the best virtual reality headset mankind has ever seen. And he set about doing that. He raised £2.3 million worth of Kickstarter money, and he developed a headset called the Oculus Rift SDK. We took delivery of that, and our chairman of our company, Stuart Waplington, put it on, and he was suddenly taken in a demo to a sunny day in a Tuscan villa. And when he took the headset off, he felt genuine disappointment to find himself in rainy East London. And it was the presence that induced that disappointment. And he thought, this is powerful stuff. This is where we're going to go with our business. So we set about creating virtual reality experiences for ourselves, not paid commissioned jobs, but just experiences. We went to the V&A and we filmed inside there. We went on stunt planes. We started going to see brands and saying, look, we can do VR. And without fail, everyone who put the headset on would just go, wow, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. But then they'd say, but how can our audience see it? How can we use it? And it was very difficult to obviously convince people to buy virtual reality experiences as part of their marketing campaigns when they were concerned about how it would be distributed. When Facebook, but as you mentioned earlier in the show, took over Oculus Rift, the people that we'd been seeing saying to them, look, we can do VR, and who were saying, very nice, suddenly started phoning us up and saying, actually, I think we need to start using VR. And when we asked those clients, well, why do you want VR? A lot of them often said, because it's cool and everyone's talking about it, which is a fair enough reason to get involved with the format. But actually what we're seeing now, if you like 3 years later, is storytelling, finding its way into VR experiences. I think when we first started working on it, it was, look, I'm on a roller coaster, woohoo! And that's fun, but the novelty does wear off after a little while. And certainly the best TV commercials are the ones really which have the, if you like, the best storytelling. I think one of the most classic adverts on TV was the Guinness Surfer advert, the white horses on the waves. Everyone, that's been voted one of Britain's favourite adverts. It's a great story, and that's why it stands out. And what's happening now with VR is people are, now that they've seen it and that they've seen that more people are engaging with it, agencies and brands are thinking, how can we weave storytelling into a 360 filmscape?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and it is all about the storytelling, the experience. So when we talk about that, what other applications, in your opinion, are there about virtual reality? Industries have adopted it, many industries.
There's so many, it's, the list goes on. Let's start first with education. For example, there's something which I'd encourage the viewers to check out, which is called Google Expeditions. They call it taking kids to places that the school bus cannot go. It's an amazing initiative done by Google where schools can sign up to it, and Google, I don't quite know how it works, but they generously give the teacher a tablet and they give the children in the classroom they give them a box with 30 phones and 30 cardboard headsets, and the teacher stands at the front of the classroom and she says, okay kids, you're now going to go to Verona, Italy to see where Romeo and Juliet lived. And in unison, she presses the play button and they're all suddenly in Verona, Italy. And one of the things I love about that in terms of education is that Confucius, 2,500 years ago, said, if you tell me something, I'll forget it. If you show me something, I may remember it. But if you involve me, I will understand. And I do feel that it's a wonderful application that is in education. There's also empathy VR. And would you like me to talk about empathy VR now?
Yeah, I mean, just before I go to Jonathan, based on that example, you've got something to show us as well, haven't you? We can have a look at some examples of the
Absolutely.
VR. So do you want to just show us that now on
Absolutely.
the laptop? Yeah.
I'm going to show a couple of things that we've got to do with empathy VR.
Yeah, and our viewers can probably see this on the screen when you're ready.
Well, certainly I watched something on TV recently, which was it was Robert De Niro who had experienced this, and he found it extremely moving. So let's play this. This is something that the Guardian...
we can go to full screen on that one, actually.
Go full screen? Yeah. There we go.
Brilliant. Awesome, there you go.
And as it says here, you know, right now 80,000 to 100,000 people are in solitary confinement in the US, and they spend 22 to 24 hours a day in concrete cells with little or no human contact. And if you were wearing a headset, you could turn your head around, like I'm turning around on the mouse, and you get to explore just how scarily tiny these cells are that people spend 22 to 23 hours a day. When you're wearing a headset, you're totally immersed in it. And the first thing you think is, I want to take this off. This makes me feel so uncomfortable. But then you say to yourself, hold on, I've only spent 20 seconds looking at this. If people are spending 20 hours in this, I will tolerate this for 10 minutes. And when you watch this experience, you hear the voiceovers of inmates who've experienced solitary confinement saying, stay fit, do 50 push-ups. Now count the bricks on the wall. Look at the brushstrokes in the bricks. Think of the happiest memories you've ever had. And when you take that headset off, Robert De Niro said this. He said, it was like I was there. Memories that you have in virtual reality become real memories. Unlike saying, I remember reading in a book or I remember seeing in a film, when you think, you almost say, I remember when I was in solitary confinement, even though obviously you weren't. That's how powerful it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's massively powerful. And quite a lot of people have been talking about this experience. And also, if we look at our press highlights that we've done, a lot of the major newspapers have been talking about it. So if we look at the Telegraph, it says, don't cling on to virtual reality as a saviour. It's got a long way to go. I think some of our Voxbox mentioned that. The Guardian, virtual reality isn't just for gaming. It could transform mental health treatment. Touched on what you've just touched on. New York Times, virtual reality companies look at science fiction and their next play. Independent, virtual reality can be used to treat severe paranoia, and says a groundbreaking study. Again, you've mentioned as well. The Wall Street Journal, Microsoft make virtual reality software available to others. And obviously the BBW News, how will virtual reality change our lives? And something that you've written, there's a blog that you've written about, it's the Happy Finish blog, virtual reality and the ability to remember. So what we'll do, you can choose one of those sort of articles and we can discuss them in more detail. In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll go and talk to Jonathan Blaine, our career advisor, and because we've had some sort of interesting questions that have come in. Right, so I'll leave you with those to choose, and then I'll go and talk to John.
I'll see you in a moment.
Hi, John. Good to see you.
Hi, Hanif.
Really interesting conversation, isn't it? Amazing.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. John, can you give our viewers an insight into the virtual reality market, but from a career perspective, because this is just going wild now, isn't it?
Well, what I'd like to do is to put this into some sort of context. Been doing some research. Deloitte have come up with a research and a study, and what they're saying is that virtual reality is now a $1 billion turnover industry. So that in itself, it's like staggeringly big. But get this, the predictions on the growth are astronomical. You know, they're talking about $100 billion industry or $150 billion industry by 2020. Well, they're talking, I've seen some reports that said this is going to be like 5 times bigger than iPhones. Yeah. So their predictions, maybe they'll be undercooked, maybe they'll be overcooked, but I think that because we're at that sort of $1 billion industry already, you know, we cannot, it's very, very, very exciting from a career perspective. There are going to be lots of opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to ask you next, so what sort of job-related opportunities are there in this booming sort of environment?
Well, basically, it's an emerging industry. And I think what happens in an emerging industry, everyone's looking around to say, well, who knows what's going on? The impression that I get is that roughly 70% of the business is hardware, and then the rest of it is software services. It seems from the research that I've done at the moment that games is taking a big chunk of this market share, that if you like, games is like leading in. But Simon's, you know, referred to the use in education. You know, you talked originally in your intro about the military use. Yeah. The applications are almost endless, you know, from classrooms, nurseries, old people.
Tradesmen.
Tradesmen. It's just so exciting. Yeah. And, you know, the viewers, you need to get excited about this because it's like a brave new world. And, you know, if you imagine the days of the Wild West, you know, in the States where they were moving back and claiming the territory, or think about the early days of the internet, you know, when hardly anyone's using it and people are starting to set up websites and how that evolved. In a way, we've got like a whole new world, a whole new industry, a whole new technology. And if you think about, you know, Facebook and Google and the internet, how long that they've been around, you know, it's not a huge amount of time. So the potential is, fantastic.
Yeah, but with the potential, and as you know, there must be some warning signs. I mean, people getting into it, realizing it's not what they wanted, or the technology or the ability to do the job is not available, and they've put their career into it. What sort of warnings are there?
Well, I think it's a very valid point that you've made, because what tends to happen is people go, virtual reality, this is going to be great, it's going to be this like huge growth curve, but it doesn't mean to say that the particular part of virtual reality that you go into, the technology, the hardware, the application, the games, are necessarily going to win. Before coming on this program, I did go onto the internet. I started to look for jobs. I tell you now, there's pages and pages and pages of jobs. There are jobs available, there's developers, but if you imagine there's like an ecosystem, there are people involved in financing and fundraising. There are entrepreneurs out there that are into the market. You know, there are technical people. There are people working in every department that you could ever imagine. You know, from, you know, in the communications side, in the operations side, you know, there's marketing machines of major corporations that are waking up to this potential. And none of us really know how, you know, if we had a crystal ball, Well, that's what we've got, really. It is a crystal ball. You know, it's, you know, we don't know for certain how this is going to play out. But I mean, I think what I have to say to the viewers is, you know, all the signs are this is going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many industries out there. You know, there's education, there's training, there's skills, there's the medical, there's the health profession. And in their own right, they're very big industries.
Yes.
And virtual reality is like a layer.
Yes.
So is it mainly geared for people who are more techie, or is this sort of like a different type of person that can also get involved with virtual reality?
I think it's a great question. I think the answer to that is it's both. Because, you know, wherever there's techies doing their techiness, there's all the supporting people that are needed to support those whole businesses, organisations. I think it's desperately exciting, really. And, you know, I think a lot of the advantages will probably go to the first movers, you know, the people that go and claim the territory, and that we'll need to look at which of the technologies, you know, that are going to win the technology race. Yeah. Because the one thing that's certain is, you know, there's going to be surprises. Things will move fast.
Yeah, well, fantastic, John. I mean, there's a lot more I'd love to ask you, but because this is such a big, maybe we'll touch on it on another time, because obviously I want to talk about, you know, what other opportunities are in, you know, in manufacturing, etc. But, you know, we'll have to hold it there. But thank you very much for that insight. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, before we go and see what Masood has done, remember we like to hear your views and your thoughts on this topic. Do tweet us at MTA BiggerPic using the hashtag MTA_TBP, and then send us an email as well on the bigger picture. And our social media time is excited to read your responses and your discussion, and we'll also be sharing some of your questions, and obviously you get an opportunity for your quiz. Well, anyway, so Masood, let's see what have you done. Let's have a look. How you getting on with your program now?
Sure. I mean, right now it's just a rough start. I'm kind of playing on the idea of simulation and fantasy. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm fasting and I'm hungry right now, but it's this kid who's playing this kind of like a simulated game where he's eating food. Yeah. And he can eat whatever he wants, but he has a plate of food right next to him. So it's a bit of ungratefulness here and there, but as a person who's looking forward to VR, I can see myself being so immersed in this sort of digital world that even I could end up doing that. So. Yeah,
because it is, and I think a lot of people are really interested. I think it's like an awakening, isn't it, virtual reality? What do you think, Simon?
It's interesting what you're saying about the food there. Virtual reality has the ability to sort of transfer your belief. So, for example, you might be familiar with the film The Wire. It's that film that looks at the tightrope walker that walked between the Twin Towers. Yeah, and there was a movie at the cinema about it. And there was a VR experience where people were in a room, so they knew that they were in a normal room on a normal floor, but this was really interesting. They were asked to take their shoes off, and on the floor they positioned a tightrope wire, you know, just the thickness of a telephone wire, if you like. And with a headset on, they were asked to just walk between the Twin Towers on this tightrope, and they were in a normal room wearing a headset, but people literally cling onto the walls and say, "I'm not doing it," you know, because they really look down and they experience vertigo. And you know, you're talking about the burger there because you're hungry. But there's a fascinating book that I'm reading currently, which is called Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and it's set in the year 2044. And if you like, artificial intelligence has taken everyone's jobs away. It's quite a weird dystopian sci-fi book, and so people don't really have as much money. So they're living in freight containers and they're eating not very great food, but they believe, thanks to their headsets, that they're living in a palace and eating, you know, the finest chicken dinner, if you like. So. It does have the ability to suspend belief like that.
Because also, when you talk about this side of thing, the medical side, I know it's really helped with people who lose a limb and they still feel that they have a limb there, the phantom limb, and it's really helped people cope with that stress and that pain.
That's true.
And they've done it through playing games as well.
They have, and you know, I've read something on the BBC website where there was a study where someone was afraid of going into elevators, so they put a headset on and they walked into a decreasing sized room. The room got smaller and smaller and smaller. They had to walk through opening doors in a VR headset, and they would walk in, and originally the room was quite large, and it would get smaller to the size of a lift, and then they would take the headset off and find that they were actually able to get into a lift without the panic attacks that they normally experience. So VR can be curative like that.
Exactly right, with these certain phobias. And also I read an article about when people who can't walk are bedridden and they have problems moving anywhere, but they can still play a game, when they have a panic attack, they can play a game that helps them with their breathing. So the only way that they can move objects around is to control their breathing. Yes. And when they control their breathing, and that's how the game works, and the virtual reality around them, it helps them get more healthier, it helps them control their breathing, and they sort of like de-stress totally.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. If I may, I could show you another sort of empathy VR experience, which is relevant to medical.
Please do,
It's called. There's a tablet called Cllr, and this is an experience that Happy Finish worked on with the agency DDB Remedy. And I'm going to just play the video, which I think will be silent. So I'm going to kind of talk through as this video plays what's here. But this is a young lady, and it's the migraine experience, and that's her mum. And her mum would give anything to just understand what it's like for her daughter to experience migraines. And so we created an experience. We've done the Google Cardboard version of this experience, where it has an outward-facing camera which shows you the real world, but it superimposes on it the effects of a migraine. So with Instagram, you take a photograph and you can apply a different filter to change the look of the photograph. With this, you can apply. Let's pause that now. Excuse me. But with this, you can have a look at the real world, and apparently there are 5 different things that happen with a migraine. One might be flashing lights, one might be dots, and what you can do is almost choose one of those 5 filters, and then you can give it to your partner who doesn't quite appreciate what's happening when you have a migraine. They wear the headset, and when they walk around and they see this filtered effect of what a migraine's like, and you can dial up the power of it or dial it down. Partners take off the headsets and go, "Oh my God, darling, I'm so sorry that you feel this way." And they have much more empathy, and it's very useful for that.
Yeah, and very submersive. And it helps so much in the understanding as well.
That's right. It can show people what it's like to have autism and all sorts of conditions like
exactly.
this.
That's another thing where you've got children who suffer from autism, and their experience of in crowded places. They can experience crowded places wearing a headset, and when they take it off, they feel they're in a safer place. So it helps them cope with going to places where it's crowded because they've already experienced it many times.
And when you think about things like bullying, where people sometimes aren't tolerant of maybe a child who has autism who gets freaked out when he's in a busy shopping mall, and you see people looking at a parent thinking, why can't you keep your child under control in this shopping mall when actually the child's autistic and is having a terrible time? If you can show people, listen, take 2 seconds just to look at this and see what it's like to be autistic, people will take the headsets off and go, I'll never be cruel about an autistic child again, and this can improve society this way.
Yeah. And exactly, which article did you decide on?
I kind of looked at, there were 3 that sort of stood out to me. I think the first one I would probably go to is the one I know best. It's the one I wrote for the Happy Finish blog, and it's called Virtual Reality and the Ability to Remember. And the reason I'd go to that, if I can go to a,
you can do,
a
but
video.
just before you go to that, we've just had a question that's come in via Twitter, and they're asking about, are there any health and safety concerns? And I think the biggest thing is eyesight. My guess is it affects people's eyes.
That's right. Well, I've actually Googled that to say, is VR bad for your eyes, to sort of ask what the consequences are of this. And the answers that I found on Google, not my own opinion, but what I've read, is first of all, it says it's such new technology, there isn't any conclusive evidence whether it's good or bad. That is yet to be seen. But it's very interesting because when you look further, there are 2 schools of thought. Now, with virtual reality, with a headset like this, it's what we call an untethered experience. There's no wires going into this. You put a phone inside and you are looking through magnifying glasses at a screen. When you think in the past, who were the people that wore glasses like you and I? It was traditionally bookworms, people that looked at something at a fixed distance for too long and it affected their eyes. Our eyes aren't supposed to be at a fixed distance for a long time. We're supposed to look into the distance and look back, and our muscles should contract and expand, and that's how our eyes should work. So one school of thought said that on tethered experiences, which you're looking at a phone, and it's through magnifying glasses, it suggested that that might not be the best thing for eyes, but it wasn't conclusive. But on the other hand, tethered headsets like the Oculus Rift headset, like the HTC Vive, you know, I've played a game on the HTC Vive where you're in a castle holding a bow and arrow, and you've got to shoot these guys with a bow and arrow who are trying to invade your castle. And what you're doing with your eyes is you're looking at characters in the distance and down there, exactly right, and your eyes are pulling backwards and forwards. And there is a school of thought on Google that says perhaps VR could be the best entertainment screen format that we have ever seen for our eyes. Like I say, it's yet to be decided.
Exactly right. To exercise the muscles, to look far, to look close. But okay, well, thank you very much for that question on Twitter, and hopefully that's an answer. So really what we like to do, just before we go to show the results of the poll, I interrupted you about you were going to show us something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to show is everyone loves David Attenborough talking about nature, of course. So let's expand this to full screen and play this. This is one of my favourite virtual reality experience. David Attenborough is standing on a crane and he's talking about the Titanosaur. Look at the size of it. You have to really rotate. If you were wearing this on a headset, let's just play that.
Let's play it and bring Attenborough back in again.
If you were turning your head, you'd have to physically rotate your head to see the enormity of this beast. And Attenborough says, if I was on normal TV, I would have to tell you that this dinosaur is 3 stories high and weighs the same as 15 bull elephants from Africa. He says, but you're in virtual reality. You can see this for yourself. And one of the things that I wrote about in my blog about this, that's just buffering. Let's see if we can get that to play. But
okay, well, we can come back to that. But that's it's starting to play.
It's playing. I can tell you quickly. Was this in the film? It's a 4-minute film. I watched it once 2 months ago, and David Attenborough is telling us all these facts about this dinosaur. As you can see, it goes into an X-ray here now, and he tells us, for example, that 90 litres of blood pump through its heart with every single heartbeat. He tells us that the heart weighs 3 times the amount of him. Now, this is the weird thing. I wasn't the best kid at school, all right? But when I watched something in VR, I found that amount of time could pass and I still remembered everything, all right? And I asked myself, if I may, I asked myself, why is it that I can remember things better when I watch them in VR than when I watch them in 2D? And I went online and I Googled it. Why is VR better for my memory than normal? And this report from Stanford University in 2008, which was called Presence and Memory, did a huge amount of research into it, and it concluded that technology which induces presence increases our ability to recall information.
Well, thank you very much. Well, the program is literally about to finish now. We only got about 3 minutes to go. What I would like to do is just show the results to the poll that have come in. The question that we were asking, as I said earlier, was, what is the one thing that most excited about virtual reality? It was gaming, sports events, and learning. What I'm not excited about. There you go. We've revealed the results, and there it looks like learning is probably the best there, and it's at 41%, which is, it shows it's quite a good gap there, sports and learning experiences. And also, now the question that we asked earlier at the beginning, so where our audience could come in, we asked them the question, tell us another name for interpersonal communication. Is it A, virtual reality? Is it B, dyadic communications, and mass communications? So what the answer was, I think B, and they'll let me know now who won. So let's see, what I'd like to do is ask you to choose a number, if you don't mind, based on the algorithm between 1 and 10, and then by that way we'll be able to choose the winner to the question.
Let's go. I've got 3 children, so let's say number 3.
Number 3. Okay, all right, so the answer, they'll probably bring it onto the screen as well, but it's Sumra. Who has won. Congratulations, Sumra. So you will be sent this bigger picture mug, so it's very exclusive, and so congratulations. So also, thank you very much. So just like to end by saying thank you very much for getting involved with us. There was so much more that we wanted to talk about, but we really didn't have enough time. But if you don't mind that, we really look forward to seeing you again in the future. So for now, thank you for joining us. Please remember to send in your tweets and send us everything else. But just before we go, we've got some quotes to send you.
Virtual reality was once the dream of science fiction, But the internet was also once a dream, and so were computers and smartphones. Mark Zuckerberg. As the Internet of Things advances, the very notion of a clear dividing line between reality and virtual reality becomes blurred, sometimes in creative ways. Jeff Mulgan. The biggest misconception about virtual reality is that it's an isolating technology, but you won't be alone in these virtual worlds. Dr. Richard Marks. I like live audiences with real people. Virtual reality is no substitute. Hillary Clinton.
Well, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from everyone here in London, and thank you for all our viewers around the world. Assalamu alaikum.